What's your I was the only one to get away story? Story 1. In the 7th grade, me and a friend went back to our old elementary school in May after school to find some 4th and 5th graders who had climbed onto the roof. Being the curious 7th graders we went up on the roof with them by climbing on top of a power box. The elementary school was right next to a huge main road, so on most parts of the roof you could be seen from that road. There were 5 of us, and we had explored just about every part of the roof except for the gymnasium roof where my friend said he was thirsty. I had $1, so I rode my bike to the party store just down the street. When I came riding back up the road to the school, I saw a group of 2 police officers talking to my friend. Turned around and went home. I know one of my friends went down to the station, but I don't know about the other 3. My friends weren't upset with me for leaving. They better not be. Look, if you're with your friends and all but 1 or 2 of you is caught, you do not hold it against those who got away or turn them in. Be it skill or luck, you rejoice in anyone spared punishment, or else you're just being a dink. Story 2. Oh crap, reading these stories is really jarring my memory, or maybe these beers are kicking in, and just remembering another happening, only this time no one was arrested. So back in high school, again, myself and 2 of my friends were chilling by this river. We call it the river, but it was more of a stream behind a bunch of houses, drinking and doing coke. After finishing a few lines and a shared Gatorade bottle of something, probably vodka mixed with a little Gatorade now that I think of it, we decided to start walking around. All of a sudden, we see flashing lights. I don't do well around cops usually, my last story being the only exception really. And my heart's already beating pretty fast, this time probably from a mix of anxiety and the white fluffy druggie. So we dipped. Suddenly I saw this sort of sewer drain sort of thing and said something like, "Crap, let's hide in there," so we crawled in. We cramped together in this confined drain sort of thing for about 15 minutes, but it felt like hours. Plus side, got some teas in my face. Anyway, I eventually slid out to check to see if anyone's still there. I don't hear sirens, and I don't see any more people, so we all get out and relax back at one of the girls' houses for a beer and a few bowls. Well, to be fair, in that story you were not the only one to get away, but still, good story. Not that I condone the use of drugs, but I do condone good stories. Story 3. Not me, but a close friend of mine. Freshman year at university, we're all celebrating a friend's birthday party in my dorm room when an RA overhears me shushing everyone and decides to investigate. The whole dorm room stank of booze, so we came in, took down names, had us empty everything out, etc., etc. Fast forward to a few weeks later, and everyone who was there is getting emails about their upcoming student judicial hearing. All except one. We'll call him Jamie Lannister. So Jamie reveals to us that the RA apparently wrote down the wrong name for him, a miracle since he checked most of our IDs when he was taking names. And instead of having the name Jamie Lannister, it's something more like James Bannister. Cue a change of story on all of our parts, and at our judicial hearing, each one of us was asked about this James Bannister, who they weren't able to track down. We respond with an already agreed-upon story that he was some weird dude tangentially related to our group who more or less followed us up to my room, and that none of us were familiar with his last name. The effer got off scot-free. Story 4. Last night I was playing World of Warcraft, doing mythic dungeons with 2 guildmates and a couple of pugs. We were in Shadowmoon Burial Grounds. I was tanking on my main Pally tank, and the run was going pretty smooth until we got to the last boss. I was on voice chat with my 2 guildmates, and I told them to move far away when the boss spawns fire and to watch the frontal cone when we have to group up for Ritual of Bones. Long story short, everybody but me did everything wrong and died like bees. So I'm sitting there with the boss at 35% health, thinking I should probably just go kill myself so we can get a fresh start on the boss, but I decide to be stubborn instead. I engage in full bad A mode, played everything perfectly, and was somehow managing to out-heal the damage the boss was doing to me. When the first ritual started, I just ran through it with bubbles. For the second and last ritual, I popped all my remaining CDs and sprinted through it while chugging a health potion. About 3 minutes after the rest of the group died, I finished off the boss solo. One of the DPS claims he was going to suck my D. It was pretty intense. Were stories like this not the point of this post? God, I hope not. Look, I game. I'm a full-fledged dork and a half, and I support you having fun with your friends. But the only way I would read a whole thread like that is if it were April 1st. Even then, probably not. Story 5. I was the only one to get away from my hometown. Even the kids who went to college out of state moved right back. I was one of 4 in my class who took early graduation, graduated high school with diploma in hand at the end of January instead of June, even though due to how the school changed class scheduling, like 90% of the senior class was eligible. We went from a possible 7 credits a school year to a possible 10. The change happened in our junior year, so since we all came in under the old schedule, we still only needed the lower credits to graduate. I remember on my last day in January, everyone was talking in the homeroom like, "Did you take early grad?" "No, I wish I did, but I'd miss everyone." This was the school, town, teachers, jobs, people they said they utterly detested and couldn't wait to get away from. They're all still there now with apartments and kids, still saying how much they hate it and wish they could move away. Story 6. When I was in high school, we had a Guitar Hero tournament. After the whole ordeal was over, nobody made us actually get rid of the setup that was in an unused room. This led to a bunch of us always leaving to go to the bathroom and just going to play Guitar Hero. Eventually, it evolved into 5 to 6 box PlayStation setups in the room. One day, the principal finally walks in this room and there are upwards of 30 people in there playing video games. He immediately marches us all to the office. I storm out the door to go first with a plan that should never work. I walk up to the office door, pull it back, and hold it for everyone, and then just shut the door behind them and walk off. Somehow nobody noticed that I never went in and I never got in trouble. Nobody else got in real serious trouble, just some detentions, but still hilarious. Story 7. This is a little different than what OP asked for, but it mostly fits. I was the one to get away with a very embarrassing event. There I was sitting in my 9th grade French 1 class just zoning out. At the time I was extremely shy and would die from even the smallest embarrassment. What then happened was just a slight adjustment back into my seat as I'd been leaning forward and bam, the loudest effing fart possible. It was heard by absolutely everyone, 32 to 35 kids, but fortunately it was very abrupt and quick. Since the fart didn't drone on and everyone was still stunned, I just froze knowing that I would soon be caught. I could even feel my face flush bright red, which should have been obvious that it was me who dealt with it. Surprisingly, like a miracle from God himself, the few students around me immediately began blaming each other while everyone else just laughed. No one pointed at me. One girl says, "Ew, that was not me." Another guy says, "Hey, if it was me, then I would just own up to it." He then turns to me and, no crap, asks, "Who was the one that did it? You tell us." I just kinda shrugged my shoulders until the teacher soon calmed down the class. To this day, I still cannot believe how no one thought I did it. Story 8. Hotboxing a truck with some friends of a friend senior year in an empty parking lot of some park, already high as F, when suddenly the Taco Bell we had gorged on earlier is going ape crap in my bowels, and holy crap, I need a bathroom. I ran/stumbled my way to the public restroom on the other side of the parking lot. I finished, and as I'm about to walk out, I see what looks like red lights illuminating the entrance. I start losing my crap. I know it's cops and everyone's high as F. At this point, I knew A, my friends are effed, B, what the F should I do? I retreated in the farthest stall and texted my parents saying I was crashing at some dude's house. Ended up falling asleep in the stall. Woke up the next morning and got another friend to pick me up. Got away, no one ratted me out, and that's how Taco Bell simultaneously destroyed and saved my butt at the same time. Story 9. I went to a private high school and was part of a group of about 20 people who knew about a tent hidden in the woods behind our school. People would go there and do it after school, smoke pot, and do hood rat crap. Someone got in trouble and ratted out all of us as an attempt to lessen her punishment. Apparently, she was going to be expelled, and on the last day before finals, we all got called down to the detention room, and the dean told us that they had found drug paraphernalia and weapons, airsoft pistols, and made us all write down everything we know about the tent and who we've seen at the tent. 19 people ratted out everyone in that room, including themselves, and were given pretty harsh punishments. 3 were expelled, some were suspended into the next year, and the rest got demerits. I wrote down, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Went and talked to the deans and said the same thing and was off the hook. I'm certain my name was on every list, and I'm sure they wanted to nail me, but I denied, and I guess they were satisfied with 19 people giving themselves up. Story 10. I turned up in the school washroom with my friends with the lights off and music blasting out. People were hanging off the stalls and making as much noise as possible. Teacher comes in and writes our names down. She gets to me and asks, "Have I already written your name?" And I say yes and walk away. Friends got detention. Apparently someone cracked the mirror in the washroom and no one fessed up, so they all went down together. Story 11. Not me, but a friend. Happened 20 plus years ago. Her friends were hanging out and decided to go out for pizza. She headed to the pizza place while the others headed to the other location of the same pizza joint. This was before the days of common cell phones. The location that her friend went to, a guy decided to shoot up the place. I'm not sure how many were hit. She was obviously fine because she was at the other location. Story 12. High school party, one of my first. I was wasted, throwing up in the basement bathroom when the cops arrived. Eventually, they were let inside and stormed into the basement where everyone was hiding loudly with the lights off, with their flashlights beaming down into the dark. I want to say there were at least 30 people rounded up into the living room where they started calling parents. The host of the party saw me sitting on the mantel, having accepted my fate. She knew my dad would literally whoop my butt and sent me out the window. I knocked over the grill on my way out and walked around the back of the house, through a few backyards, and to the neighborhood pool where I cuddled with some bushes for a few hours. When I saw the last cop finally leave, I sprinted back to the house and knocked on the door to be let in, scaring the crap out of the 3 survivors. A few dozen people were charged with underage drinking. Hey, huge props to the host for doing what they could to help you escape abusive punishment. That's a damned solid move, and I hope you bought that person some pizza or something as thanks. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 13. As a teen, I worked at a retail shop with a bunch of other teens. We would regularly fill carts with merchandise and walk them out the front door when management was on break. Cases of beer, cartons of cigarettes, perfume, cologne, batteries, compact discs, Dr. Scholl's, you name it, we stole it. I got promoted from cashier to customer service counter. A woman came in one day with a severe bee face on. I said something along the lines of, "You don't look like you've had a positive shopping experience," or some BS. She went off on me. Turns out the bee face was her normal face, and I said the same thing to her every time she came. I didn't remember her, was high most of the time into the store. That was my 3rd strike and I got fired on the spot. 1 week later, all of my friends were arrested for theft. They had installed hidden cameras throughout and busted everyone except me. Story 14. I was gambling in Vegas on a Friday with a friend's bachelor party coming up the next day. Playing blackjack mostly just killed time waiting for dinner, but the table was on fire. It was a full table shortly after I sat down. I played for a couple hours and the table was all up on money anywhere from $50,000 to $800. The $800 was me. Everyone else was literally up at least 10 grand. It's about 20 minutes before I'm supposed to meet up with someone, so I called it and head back to my room so I can shower and change for the night. Head out for dinner and have a good night. The next morning, my buddies call me down to the lobby to meet up. As I get down there, out of sheer coincidence, they are talking to the dealer who was at the table when I left. She says, "There he is," and points at me. Friends are like, "No crap?" Turns out I was the only one that walked away from that table with $1 to my name. See, if that was me, I would have bailed out the moment I was like $20 up. I am not a gambler, and with that attitude, I am confident I never will be. Story 15. My first house party in college was on Halloween my freshman year. Naturally, everyone was in costume and about half the people were underage. I wasn't drinking, but my friends were. Around midnight, an older guy, 40s, walks in dressed as a cop. Me, being one of the few sobers at the party, realized he was an actual cop. I tried to convince my friends to leave, but they all said the guy was just in a costume, so I left on my own. I walked right past the cop, told him to have a good night, and walked home. I found out the next day all of my friends got tickets for underage drinking. Story 16. It was a night out in college just after the club, and loads of people are milling about in the streets drunk as F. After a few drinks, I always get hungry, so I grab one of my friends to go get a pizza, but the 4 other lads I was with wanted to go home, so they walked down the street to get a taxi. After gorging on some sweet pizza, I called my friends to find out where they headed to find out that they were in an ambulance. As they were getting into the taxi, they got jumped by 2 rough locals, wallets stolen, and one got bottled across the head, 2 teeth knocked out, and another stabbed from ear to chin. 2 inches lower and he'd be dead. Court case happening in a few weeks, and the only reason I'm not involved or injured is because I'm always hungry. Story 17. This one is pretty scary, actually. I'm a special contractor for the military, mostly consultation work, and often get posted to forward bases and carriers and such. I can't really divulge what I do. Anyway, I get posted to this large force-projecting carrier in the Cold War, think South China Sea, when it gets attacked by these people in small craft in the littoral zone, which isn't really much of a threat because we have huge guns, right? Wrong. These a-holes were packing special ordnance or something, and we only just realized once they got too close to use our anti-ship weapons. Of course, me being a lowly consultant, I don't have any cut-through to the captain because he's actually an 08 and thinks he knows effing everything. Apparently, I'm the only one who thinks it would be a good idea to launch smaller craft that can interdict them and keep them at appropriate range. I muster up a few good dudes and engage these rebels ship to ship. In the meantime, these guys managed to blow up the station somehow, and only I got away and my tie advanced. Had to warp back to the Empire like a peasant. Second worst day of my career, although I did get promoted after that. God damn it, I got Star Wars'd. I knew this person sounded like they were full of crap. I just didn't realize the crap was Star Wars. Story 18. Not me, but a friend was at a house party my senior year of high school. I was on a date that night, so I didn't go. The cops showed up and no one could leave because there were cops outside both the front and back doors. 4 of my friends ran into the basement and 3 of them hid under the stairs while my other friends hid in the corner. The cops came downstairs, looked right past my friend hiding solo, and brought the 3 underneath the stairs up to where they were ticketing everyone. To top it off, my buddy waited like an hour and walked upstairs and the whole place was empty. The house owner had to go down to the station, so he did some dishes and crashed on the couch. Story 19. I was underage at a party in college where about 200 people were in a basement with only one exit. The cops came and made everyone leave one by one and take a breathalyzer on the way out. I had about 5 or 6 drinks by this point, and they were giving tickets to anyone underage that blew over maybe a .02. Me and one buddy went all the way to the back of the basement where there was a sink and chugged water and peed in the corner for the roughly 2 hours it took to breathalyze everyone. We were some of the last people to leave and had both sobered up enough that we blew 0 on the breathalyzer and just drove home. Story 20. Party got busted when I was in college. Depends on the cops and usually the time of year. They will generally just tell everyone to go home and only hand out MIPs to anyone who is belligerently drunk or carrying alcohol who's under 21. Well, drunk me thought it was a brilliant idea to walk out the back with my beer, and I wasn't 21. Well, cops aren't stupid and had someone standing by the back door. I walk out and the cop asks me, "Are you 21?" I said, "Do you think I would be carrying this if I wasn't?" And he goes, "All right, get out of here." I guess this was one of the parties where they handed out MIPs to everyone. I think if I'd been running or something, things would have gone differently, but just walking like nothing was going on, they didn't even card me. Boy, a lot of these are just about people getting past the cops while drinking underage at parties. I'm almost starting to miss the World of Warcraft story. No, I'm not. Story 21. Went to a house party in high school. The cops showed up and were citing people for underage drinking, so I hid my beer in my jacket before this officer swaggered towards me. We're talking about some BS, and I'm lying my butt off saying I was just seeing what was going on, coming home from some made-up extracurricular activity, blah, blah, blah. He probably knew I was drunk, but I was being polite and was held together better than my other belligerent peers. In the midst of our conversation, my beer drops out of my jacket at our feet. F. Instead of panicking, I played dumb and just looked around with a confused expression and exclaimed something like, "Whoa, where the heck did that come from?" The officer saw this dude acting like a drunk jackass a few yards away from us and started yelling and charging after him. I dipped and walked home. Apparently, everyone got effed by the police that night. Story 22. I was shooting up H in the parking lot of a macaroni grill with some other junkies, and 2 cop cars rolled up right after I injected it all. I tossed the needle under the seat and the cops came up and told us all to get out of the car and sit down on the curb. I told the cop they were just my ride home. The junkies I was with all started yelling and swearing at the cops, saying I was full of crap and I had dope on me. I didn't have a sheet on me, and they did so they got thrown in the back of the cruiser. Cops patted me down and found my wallet and some string cheese. The cop told me I was free to go since I didn't have a sheet on me. I was also polite to the officer, unlike my dip crap friends. Junkies went to jail, and I got an Uber home. Story 23. I have a great story. It is actually my mom's story, though. She was on a missionary trip with members of her church. They went down to Mexico to an extremely poor village and did a bunch of stuff, including building a schoolhouse, giving out shoes, teaching children how to do whatever, etc. The people invited all the missionaries to come eat with them. My mom was the only one who accepted their offer. The rest of the missionaries were too scared to eat their dirty food and instead ate food that they bought with them in their coolers and RV fridge and whatnot. My mom tried to convince a few to eat the food that was offered. It was all these people who had to pay back anyone. But in the end, they all declined. My mom ate some truly amazing Mexican food that night, and by morning, the entire missionary group besides my mom was sick with food poisoning. If you're going to do missionary work with another culture, you better be prepared to experience what that culture has to offer you. Don't go places just to push your stuff on them. I have other thoughts on this, but I'll keep those to myself. Story 24. As a teenager, we heard there was going to be a large keg party in the neighboring town, so me and two of my buddies headed over there. Several hundred people showed up in a large sand pit with only one exit. Fortunately, one of my two buddies carried a police scanner and was able to hear the call out and the police responding to the scene. Since there was only one way in and out of the place, my two friends and I climbed up a 75-foot wall of wet sand to get up out of the place, and watched from the woods as 200 or so people got arrested by 30 cops for underage drinking. Walked away without a scratch. Story 25. My school used to have a trip every year, and in 6th grade we went to Washington, D.C. to learn about U.S. history. I've always been known as a pretty quiet guy, and I'd never gotten in trouble. On the first day of the trip, I was going up to the hotel rooms with 5 other people, and 2 kids would stop the elevator and jump out and jump back in at every single floor. There was a kid with anger management issues in the elevator, and he started getting really agitated. He ended up punching the 2 people who were elevator hopping, and the 2 other people in the elevator tried to intervene while I was just standing in the back. They all got their free time for the rest of the trip taken away, and the kid who started the fight got sent home while no one even remembered I was in the elevator. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.